Good day, good day. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Jay, and this is Homeschool Yo Kids podcast. Before we get started, definitely make sure you check out our traveling schedule for this year. We are going to some really exciting states, and we couldn't be more excited to see you. So check out our schedule, homeschoolyourkidsexpo.com. And major shout out to some of our sponsors, because remember, homeschooling is not something you have to do alone, and nor should you have to. So there are some great resources available to ensure that you do not. So check out Classical Conversations, who is provider of not only curriculum, but also an amazing support group across the country, it appears. And Base Camp. Base Camp. I don't know why I butcher this lady's name every time. I've been trying to change it and everything else. But Base Camp is a new app. I think it's about 2 months in, but it is quickly growing and it is a free download. So check out Base Camp. You can find other homeschooling families. You can find tutors, different activities that you all can do, just anything that you are looking for. They are working to make sure they have it on their platform. So check them out also. All right. And so today we have Shaquena. Shaquena, introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shaquena Morel. I'm a speech pathologist. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, and now I'm relocated to New Jersey. So I have a private practice in New Jersey. I support children in all different settings. I see some children in the clinic and a lot of the times at home or at school. And I got really interested in getting more involved in the homeschool community because as a speech pathologist, I really see the growth that children are able to make when they get that support at home, and that support is given in a way that is strategic. So I'm really excited to, be a part of this event, and I'm really looking forward to just being able to share with families just different ways that they can make everyday moments like language opportunities.
Yes. Okay. Well, big shout out to Brooklyn because we love Brooklyn. Okay.
Yes,
We hang out there quite
you.
often. We have some good friends up there. And okay, how do we get to speech pathology? Because that's not something you hear people getting invested in often. But how did you get on that journey?
Well, honestly, I always was in the education field. So I started very young. Like my first job was an after school teacher when I was in high school, 15 years old. And I just remember being able to work with this one student in particular who at that time I didn't really understand what was happening or her diagnosis or anything like that. I just knew that she had, it was challenging to understand what she was saying. And the most heartbreaking part of it is that so many people, and when I say people, I don't only mean children, I mean adults as well, would make fun of her, they would call her over and tell her to say something because they knew she couldn't say it, correctly. So then they would get a laugh off of that. And it really just motivated me to help her, so I just remember working one-on-one with her, and at that time I had no idea about speech pathology at all. I just was giving her more of one-to-one attention, one-to-one support, maybe what she would get with a teacher's assistant, pulling her out for small groups. So that just kind of came very innately to me. I just was drawn to students that needed that extra help, and then once I graduated high school and I was thinking about what to do with my career, going into my undergraduate, I went to Brooklyn College, CUNY. So I went straight to the education program, but in the same wing was the speech pathology department. And I just somehow made it over there, and it's been great ever since.
So what have you been doing with that? I know you say you have your own practice now in New Jersey. Do you work with schools? How does this work for you?
Yeah, I do a lot because my interest was originally in working in the school system. That's kind of where I started off as a speech pathologist. So many people may be familiar, but I think some may not, and that's why I really want to start to get out there and just spread the word more, because a lot of families, their children might be receiving these services, but they're not even sure what this means or what's happening when they're in school, what's happening when they're being pulled out for groups. So I really would love to like build that gap, bridge that gap, and just be a source of education, if nothing else. So my experience is working in the school systems. I do direct therapy with the schools, providing one-to-one IEP related services. I also have experience in early intervention, so working with that, 1 to 3-year-old range. And I'm also certified as a autism specialist, clinical specialist. So I do support a lot of children with autism who may experience other overlapping challenges in addition to their speech, maybe, or their being a late talker. And I also then work as a clinical supervisor, which I'm really, really excited about, because now I'm at my alma mater, Long Island University, as a clinical supervisor, helping the next generation of speech pathologists also grow their skills. So I do a lot of things.
Yes, that's what it sounds like. So with the speech pathology, because like you said, a lot of people may not be too familiar with exactly what that looks like and what that involves. Can you entail what services you actually provide for families?
Yeah, of course. So, and when it comes to working as a speech pathologist in the schools, like the services are according to the student's IEP. So they might be getting one-to-one services where they're working directly with the speech pathologist, or they might get group services where they might be in a group with 2 or 3 other peers. And a lot of the times, the type of goals that we will work on in a school is really related to helping them access the curriculum, being able to work on grade level, understand grade level text. So a lot of it might be around comprehension, which is something that people don't think about for speech pathology. A lot of the times they just think about how someone sounds when they talk, yes, but they don't think about, all the brain work that goes into it. So that's kind of some of the things that I do in the school. So we might work on things like understanding text, or auditory comprehension, or just being able to answer questions, self-advocacy. That's a big thing that I really work on with my students. And then in a clinical setting, a lot of the times there's people come in for specific things. So they might say, oh, I can't really understand what my child is saying, or my child isn't talking yet. So that's a lot of what I help parents with and what I see clinically. So a lot of what I do is play-based therapy in that type of setting. So I really show families and work with children in a way that allows them to have fun, and to learn in a natural, organic way.
Nice. And that's what you because when you started talking about the services that you provide, that's what I was like, does speech go hand in hand with reading? Yes. I was wondering if it did.
It does, because one thing too, where speech and language, so that comprehension piece goes into the language portion of it. How are you understanding what's being said to you? How can you put words together, or even think about your memory? How much can you remember from what the person said to respond? So, and then that goes into social communication. So it really is all things talking, the things that you see and the things that you don't see.
Yes, because I'm just thinking like, okay, so comprehension wise, because I feel like that's a big issue with people, because they're able to read the words, but they're not comprehending what it is that they're reading. So essentially, they're not really reading; they're just able to memorize words. But the comprehension aspect comes in correlation with the speech, being able to say it out loud or use it in a sentence, or like how. Like, teach me.
You're like,
I'm trying to figure it out.
Technical. I can get very technical. So when you think about, I feel like kind of the easiest way for me to dissect that would be to just explain that when you think about speech, right? There's speech, and that's like the words that you say. How can your mouth move? And, are you getting your tongue to the right place? Or is your jaw stable? And that also goes into feeding as well. So like sometimes, some families will come to me and they say, hey, my child is a picky eater. They're only eating chicken nuggets. They're only eating French fries. They're only eating a specific type of food. And that also falls within the realm of speech, because we also, we work on just everything to do with the mouth. So swallowing as well. And a lot of the times, the reason why some children have a preference for certain foods is because they don't have the oral development to handle something different. So when you think about the types of foods they're eating, like French fries, they're very soft. That's something you can just, munch up and down on, and it's easier to digest. Whereas something, let's say like a bagel, that might be hard. It takes a lot more work. Your tongue has to move certain places. So that still falls under speech, So now I'm working on feeding, and it's not necessarily feeding, it's really the oral structure. So the jaw, the tongue, the fundamentals of what it takes to talk, what it takes to eat. And then when you think about the language piece, that has more to do with what your brain is doing, So when it comes to speech, is more of a motor thing. So like, how is it moving? Whereas when it comes to language, it's more of like, how is your brain telling it to work? So how are you, so let's give the example of comprehension, right? With reading comprehension. And this is something I see a lot in the school systems, because, they're focusing on them having access to what their peers have access to in the classroom. So if they're reading a story, if their whole class is reading a story, they need to be able to understand that story and answer questions about that story as well. And as a speech pathologist, now what I'm working on them from a language piece is, are they understanding the pieces of language? Do they understand that big, bigger, biggest, something like that, like superb, like those little things where if they're saying, oh, Sarah was the fastest, but Jim won the race. Do they understand what fastest means? Do they understand that piece of language? So it's those caveats, I would say, is kind of the simplest way I could say it without kind of overwhelm.
Right? No, because no, I learn something new every time I talk to some of y'all specialists, because I had a jaw growth specialist up here before,
Yay.
and he was blowing my mind with
Yeah.
just the correlation, because and you even
Yeah.
mentioned it too, so I'm like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, let's go back there, because he was talking about the development of the jaw and how that can even affect your sleep as a
Yes, it
child. Like,
does. It
yes.
does.
So
And
like,
then when your sleep is affected, and for some parents that might be having a challenging, like a child that's exhibiting challenging behaviors, like I like to get into these things, because sometimes I know it's hard, but I want parents to understand that, it's not that your child is giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time. There's
right.
something that this is communicating, right? So when they have these jaw challenges, or it's not developed correctly, now their mouth might be open when they're sleeping, or they're not getting enough airflow, so now they're continuously waking up, they're not even getting a full amount of hours. And what does that mean for development, for brain development? And
Yes.
even just how they're reacting to situations. I know if I'm tired, I don't you to bother me. So we can understand, where a lot of these things kind of stem from.
Yes, and even with speech wise, because you can't, like, thinking about like babies, they have to have certain teeth and things, right? For them to be able to say certain words or certain, like, am I right on I don't know,
Not
not
well,
certain
it's
teeth, but is it
not
the
necessarily
okay,
certainty, it's the movement, right? Because
okay,
the teeth definitely are act as a barrier. But if you think about it, there's not many sounds you make with between your teeth besides like a
mm-hmm.
th sound. There's very few sounds that go between your teeth, but it's all about it does impact development. Let's say for babies a little bit different, because they start off making like sounds that don't require that. If you think about like mama, dada, That's why
Mhm.
those are the earlier words.
The
And we're like,
first
oh, they
words,
said
yeah.
mommy, and they did, but it's also because they have the ability to move their mouth up and down. That's all mama is, we're just mama putting our lips together and pushing air. Like, so that's a little bit speechy, but so that's kind of why we hear those first sounds. So it's not necessarily because of the teeth, and that when it comes to babies, because that's a normal developmental sequence, right? So as they begin to get their teeth, then we start to hear other sounds, like I said, the th. And when we do find kids that maybe their teeth are in misalignment and things like that, it definitely does impact their speech.
Yeah, because my daughter has a little list. My 8-year-old, she got a
Mhm.
little, like, it's not, you don't hear it all the time, but you hear it though.
Yeah.
So,
And it's things like that where it's like, it's not impacting her, probably your ability to understand her, or, it's not impacting her. It doesn't bother her. So it doesn't become something that gets treated. It's just like, oh, that's just the way you talk. But it is something that a speech therapist will work on. Because then we will be wondering like, oh, is she able to get her tongue all the way back? It's her tongue, like when you're making certain sounds, your mouth has to move a specific way. So a lot of the times with children that have lisp, their tongue isn't getting back enough and their tongue isn't spreading in the back to like get that airflow to come forward.
and
So,
I wonder if that, because that's how I got on the conversation with the jaw growth specialist,
mhm.
if that is in relation to her, because she's had teeth
Yeah.
taken out, and he was like, "Oh yeah, no, kids shouldn't have teeth taken out. Like, that's not good." And I was like, "Well, sir, we should have had this meeting like 2 weeks
Yes,
ago, because you late.
because
She
it's
got them
already
out.
done.
They're gone. Yeah, they're gone now.
Yes.
So what do we do?" And
Mhm.
I was just like, okay. But I wonder if that's in relation to that because she did have those teeth removed. I don't know. I don't know.
It could be a few things, but yeah, and then sometimes it's just simple things that you can do. So like I mean, it's not something you have to work on, but this is like that homeschool piece, right? Because sometimes I also want to emphasize to parents that homeschool isn't just one moment. It's not just we're sitting down at a computer or we're sitting down with a book and pen and we're at school now. It's all of those moments. How do you make your home a learning environment, right? So you can just give her little strategies and tips throughout the day.
Yes, I know. We don't pinpoint it or anything like that
Yeah,
because she's been talking like that
fine.
for, yeah. And like you said, it's not difficult to understand her. It's just like you can hear it though. Like,
Yeah.
it's like it's there. But okay, so speech and like as far as pathologists go, does that go hand in hand with like linguistics, like the dialects and everything? Because I wanted to get like a master's in linguistics at one time. I felt like that was like one of my funnest class in funnest, is that even a word? But that was one of the best classes that
Mhm.
I had in undergrad, and I really enjoyed it. So much to the point I was like, oh, okay, I can see myself studying this because language and just the dialects and how, like, you can go to New Orleans and people say certain things a
Mhm.
certain way. You go to Texas and they talk, New
Mhm.
York, they talk, and I
Mhm.
just love that. Like, I think that's so
Mhm.
interesting.
It's not definitely is not something that I have much experience in because as you can see, like the field is so broad. Like, you can specialize in anything really because everything is a specialty. But honestly, when one of my first classes, when I got into this field, it was a phonetics class and just learning about the different ways that language is used and just like understanding what it was, it just blew my mind. I was so hooked at that point. So I could just imagine because we do hear it all the time. We're like, wow, like how do I pick up that accent? How do they
Right.
say that way? And it is very interesting.
Yes, because with you saying you're from Brooklyn, like, girl, I don't even
Mhm.
hear it. Like, it's like
Yeah.
you trade that right on up out of you.
You know how it is. You got to be able to mix. It's a mixing pot. You got to do a little bit
Indeed.
of everything. So yeah.
Indeed. And I feel like that's how how my dialect, I don't feel like I have one, like as far as
Yeah.
like where they can pinpoint I'm from, because I've gone
Mhm.
and traveled so much that I just pick up and what I like from
Yes.
everywhere. And I was
Yes.
like, sometimes I can sound like I'm from
Yes.
from Brooklyn, or
Yes.
sometimes, I can talk like I'm from New Orleans or whatever. I don't know. It's just it's I always just feel like that's really interesting. I love dialects. I love hearing how people talk. I love hearing
Yes.
that.
It's funny
Definitely.
because I feel like one thing that like always gives me away, like, okay, you're from New York, is I talk so fast. I'm like, because that's everything is on go for
It's
us,
on
and I think
go.
people see it and they're like, oh, that's like it feels like a vibe, and it is, but it's like to live like that, it's your life, and like you said, I have to tell myself like, okay, you have to slow down, you have to do
Yeah.
these things because I want to be able to come across to everybody. I don't want of course, I love my hometown. I want to connect with my people, but, I want to help as much as I can because
Everyone.
it's not just us. So, yeah. So, yeah, but
Yes.
I'm from Brooklyn, believe me. Okay.
Believe me. Don't make me pull it out, girl.
Right.
Don't make me
So,
pull
we don't
it.
got to go there. Right.
No, I love it. I had some young ladies, these twins up here, and they were from New Orleans. And when I tell you they didn't have a hint of nothing, I was like, "How y'all do
Yes.
that?" She said, My mama, my mom said that my mama made sure
Yes.
we didn't talk like that." I was
Yes, you
like,
have to get it together, right?
"Dang."
Because if not, people aren't going to listen to you. That's an unfortunate,
Yeah,
you know, it's an unfortunate piece
societal.
of,
Yes.
mhm, going through and being in different environments and like, okay, if I want to actually reach people, then I have to reach them. So
Indeed, indeed. So you created Immerse therapies,
yes.
right? And this is virtual, like people can access you virtually, or is this just local in New Jersey?
So this is local in New Jersey. I do
Okay.
also offer telehealth as well, but it just depends on what state they're in. Right now, I can provide telehealth in New York and New Jersey, and then I offer in-person services as well.
Nice. And I know you say you're in the school system and you're helping the individuals that are, that have the IEPs, individualized learning plans. What services can you offer or do you offer homeschool families?
Yeah, so a lot of the families that I work with when in regards to being in a homeschool environment, we really focus on like program development. It also depends because even some children that are homeschooled, they do also they might have mandated speech services that they receive through the district. So that would be an IEE provider. So I do provide those services as well. Like some families, they basically are allowed to find their own providers, essentially outside of the district. And the district may cover a portion of those services depending on the student's IEP. So that's a service that I provide to homeschool families. And then just from a private perspective, just also if they do have speech needs, I might see them on a one-to-one and also mainly for the family, just providing more of a program development style. So families might come to me and they might say, hey, I really want us to start. I'm trying to figure out how can I get him to work on or understand WH questions. So then I'll sit down with them and we'll go through different ways that we can incorporate WH questions into their daily routine. So how can you, for example, like one family, the child loves like grocery shopping with them and just like being able to like, decide where things go. So we use that as an opportunity to work on WH questions. So where does this go? What goes with this? Being able to identify and discriminate between things. Like, they both need to be cold, but does it need to go in the refrigerator or does it need to be colder? Does it need to go in the freezer? So those are kind of a lot of what I do with homeschool families, just more of a program development.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, and connecting the comprehension because that
Mhm.
goes with the okay, doesn't cold or colder, like are you understanding what is needed for this object? What is needed?
Right. And
Okay.
it's a lot of things that go into that, right? Because if we just dissect that simple example of like being able to teach them the difference between the refrigerator and the freezer, right? We're teaching them categorization, right? Where we're teaching them that these things are categorically different from these things. What makes them different? These things need to be kept at a colder temperature to freeze it, where these things just need to be kept cool, but it still needs to be liquid. So again, we're teaching them like liquid versus solid. We're teaching them, again, answering questions. So what makes this different? Now we're also teaching them to observe differences. So Now we can go through different things in the refrigerator. Oh, let's look at the milk versus the orange juice versus, you know, let's say maybe an ice pop in the freezer. Let's talk about what makes these things different. Why does it need to be kept in those different things? And that now goes into kind of like inferences and predictions, right? So why does this ice pop need to be in the freezer? What's going to happen if we put it in the refrigerator? Why don't we want it straight from the refrigerator? Because you want to have it as an icy. You don't want it to melt and fall everywhere. So you're teaching them all of these things, you know, comprehension, making predictions, understanding information, all the things.
Yes, and there's a lot of things, especially when it, come to just having a conversation in general and being able to comprehend what someone else is saying to you.
Mhm.
Because speech is so automatic, like you said, it's motor.
Mhm.
So it's just like our mouths, like even when you're talking now, I'm just like, because of your
Yes, paying
specialty, like
attention.
I'm paying attention. I'm just like,
Yes.
it's just so automatic what we do. And to think like how important is phonetics in development though? Because at one point they had took phonetics out and was just teaching the sight words. And I was just wondering, like, development wise in speech, how important phonetic would be for a child to know and understand as opposed to just learning words.
So I have two perspectives on that because for me, I was obviously someone that came through the education system, public school, and learning from a phonetic point of view, learning how to sound out words and things like that. Um, and it definitely is very helpful because, so this is again something that falls into speech because for us as a speech pathologist, we start to think about it from a perspective of like word segmentation. So how are you breaking down this word? How are you blending the sounds together in this word, right? Which is a great skill to have. And now with my daughter, she's in kindergarten, and they provide them with sight words. And I see how she just like she knows she can see a word and she can identify it, right? But for me, even though she's doing that and she's picking up that skill, when she doesn't know the word, like it's a brand new word, I'm still blending it out with her. So like if the word is like one of her sight words is she has so many now. I'm trying to think of one that will work good. One of her sight words that she has this, that. I feel like those ones aren't good examples, so I don't want to give those ones. Well, okay, I'll just give it. Let's say one of her sight words is this, right? So she doesn't know this word. It's the first day she's getting it. So I don't show it to her as a sight word. I don't say this. I'll sound it out for her. I'll segment it for her. So I'll say the sounds, the, is, and then I'll let her listen to the sounds, and then I'll have her try to, blend the word together. And then if that doesn't work, again, I'll just get the sounds a little bit closer. Now I'm like this, or I'll stretch the sounds out so she can hear the word. And then she knows this. And now we'll practice it as a sight word in that way where she'll just see it and know it, see it and know it. But I think from my perspective, I think that both are equally important. And I think that you need both because there's certain words that doesn't apply to that rule. There's certain things that you have to just see and know. And even as you become more of a proficient reader, just think about us as adults. We're not blending out words. We know that word and that's how we know it. And that's what allows us to read with fluency and with speed, right? So yeah, I think starting off, I would present both, but I think that sight words are definitely have their place.
Gotcha. As far as early intervention goes, because with, us all developing at different ages, I know parents sometimes get worried early on, like, oh, well, they said my baby should be talking already and they're not talking. Like, what does that look like, the early intervention? Are there a lot of false alarms or are there more like, okay, we should be working on something? And how do you even identify like that there needs to be early intervention?
This is really some really, really great questions.
I know I just asked you
Honestly.
like three, four questions in
No, no,
one.
no, it's good. They are related, right? So because it kind of one kind of leads into the other. And this is something that, especially within our community, I think is very big. because sometimes we feel like, one, that there's an over identification of our children as being or as being misdiagnosed or mislabeled, right? So that's a genuine systemic fear that I completely understand. And just historically in research, there is evidence of this, right? So, but that doesn't take away from the fact that there are some children that do struggle, right? Or that don't necessarily get the same input, right? So, just to make a simple example, me as a speech pathologist, I know how important it is to expose your child to literature. So, literally, since my daughter was about even less than 2 years old, definitely by 2 years old, I was reading her a bedtime story every single night. So, and she's 5 now. So for the past 3 years, I would say, at least 340 days out the year, she's getting one or two stories read to her. And when people talk to her, they're like, oh my gosh, she talks so well. And they think it's me. And I mean, it is me, but it's also what I exposed her to, right?
Yeah.
She's being exposed to so many different things than I could even tell her in a day, just different word structures, different sentence structures, just different situations, different characters, different emotions, all of those things she's being exposed to. And that is a strategy of early intervention. So now let's think about a child that might not be getting that, right? They're not going to have the same imagination. Like if you talk to my daughter, you ask her something, her mind goes, she takes it and she runs because she's been exposed to so much. She can connect to so many different things. And so now just taking it a step further, when this child enters the school system, the teacher's reading a story. This child they're just reading to listen because because it's also developmentally, right? So first you're just reading to listen, you're just hearing, and then you start engaging, and then you start making up your own. So there is not to say that they're not developing appropriately, but they're not at the same step. And that's what early intervention brings it to the table, where now we're providing direct instruction, or we're targeting things specifically so that way the child can understand a lot of those concepts, a lot of those that the language piece of it.
And I know you said that you also work with or are able to identify autism, because I know that goes hand in hand as far as the early intervention, because a lot of with now, like it seems like autism is like it's like I don't even know, it's on the rise. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, it's very prevalent in our community now. Whereas, you run across a family or two every now and then, but now it's like a commonality. Like it's somebody's on some type of spectrum. And a lot of times it's nonverbal, or they can't do certain, or they do not do certain things. How do you identify that early on? Because when is a good time to intervene? I guess I'm asking, like, when should you have concern?
So I want to say a few things. So first, I want to just make clear, like as a speech pathologist, I don't diagnose autism because I know like some people they're looking for a diagnosis. So that's a
Mhm.
completely different stage. I'm just a clinical specialist. So I'm specialized in treating and basically understanding a lot of kind of those underlying aspects of autism. And I know how to incorporate that into therapy, or what that means for the whole child. So an example of that would be a lot of children with autism, or parents might hear that their child is low tone, right? And they're like, low tone, like, what does that mean? So for me as a clinical specialist, like I understand that, okay, so a sign of low tone, let me say this, for some people, for a child that might be always slumping, or they might always like basically what they call W sitting. So it's like you sit with your legs back almost, so it looks like your body's in a W. So those are kind of signs of low tone. But as a speech,
See,
but yeah, but as a speech pathologist, what that means is like if your body if you're low tone in your body, now you don't maybe have the strength and stability you need for your jaw. So now you're not making certain sounds. You might not be able to eat certain foods, right? So that's just a very simplistic um, example of that. And then when you say one, it's never too early, because the best thing, the most important thing about early intervention is it's not that we're changing them, is that we're giving them support with what they need. So just imagine if you have like your knee, right? If you're not broken, let's just say you sprained your knee and every time you walk, you're limping. Would you want to limp for 3 years, or would you want someone to just give you a crutch so you can have that support and maybe your knee could heal up, or
Indeed.
you can take that off. So that's for me how I think about early intervention. It's the longer you wait, they're just missing out on time with support. Maybe they could have basically gotten the support they needed to communicate. So, and I'm going to give this example because a lot of the times when it comes to children with autism, I feel like a lot of the times parents have concerns, right? It's not that some person is randomly coming to them and they're like, oh, your child has autism. They're just like, wait, what are you talking about? A lot of times they're like, well, my other child did this, but this one isn't really doing this one, or this one is a late talker, or he just always in his own world. He just doesn't want to listen to me. That's what I hear a lot of. Like a lot of the times the behaviors are attributed to more of like the child just choosing to not interact, or the
They're being
child,
defiant.
yes, or the child being defiant, right? Like, oh, I'm calling him all the time. He don't never want to listen to me. He just want to do what he want to do. I tell him to do this. He just want to do what he want to do. He want to sit down. He don't want to eat what I give him. And that's a lot of what you hear, right? And then I have to have the parents take a step back. Like, okay, that you're already basically assigning fault to a behavior. Like you have to take a step back and think about, what might this be telling me? So a lot of times they see those things, and then when we're able to show them what that means, or put some research behind it, then they're like, oh, wow, he actually been doing this for a long time, or I've been noticed this. I just didn't know that was related to this, or this could be a sign of autism. So I don't necessarily think that autism I can't say, the research is still out on that one. But
Yes.
what I will say is that I just think that now, and I know that now with research, there are a lot more, they're focusing on early detection. So now it's not necessarily that there's an over identification. It's just that now we're getting better at knowing and seeing,
Being able to,
okay,
I gotcha. Yes.
yes. So to answer your question, I would say it's never too early, you
Yeah.
know. Secondly, if you feel that no matter what it is, because it might not be autism, it might just be that they need exposure, maybe because some parents, we're adults. We don't know. We're not thinking about that unless you're in that field where you're all about kids. So sometimes you're like, oh, wow, I could easily read them a book every day. I didn't even think about that. You should have been told me, So now I'm telling you guys, do that.
Right.
So sometimes I just think it's that. So it's the exposure piece, the just knowing. And a lot of times that's what I get from families, like, oh, I could have just said it like that. Well, that's so easy. Like I'm thinking it's so hard. It's like, no, it's not so hard.
Or even just to speaking to their kids in general. Like I know, because people always like, because my oldest, she was definitely talking by two, and she was talking a
Mhm.
whole lot. But I tell people like from 6 months on up, I used to be telling her, use your words. Are you talking to me?
Yes,
Use your words. You want to know
yes,
something? Like you want something? Tell me. Tell me what
yes,
and I've never baby talked to her. I've always talked to her as, a little person.
yes,
And so I've always encouraged her to use words with me. And I don't think, a lot of times we do get caught up in the adult world and it's like, we do need to take the time to talk to the child, like, because
yes,
how else is the language going to develop besides if
yes,
they're watching something or, listening to something. But
yes,
parents do need to hear, hey, talk to your babies, talk to,
yes. And it doesn't have to be something, so crazy too. Like, and that's really what immerse therapies is all about. Like, I really want to create a space where parents feel like I could do this, because you
Yeah.
can, and I want you to, So I really just share with families simple things that you can do, even when you're walking to school, like wait, things that you're doing already. I mean, I know this is more of a homeschool community, but you can use it in any way when you're walking to school or when you're going to grandma and grandpa's house or when you're, going out to eat. Oh, just telling them what's going on. Like, oh, we're gonna be going to Chick-fil-A and what do you want to order? And it's those things where, especially within our community, we're used to being so quiet, systemically, but you see the what that means on a bigger scale, what that means for our children, right? So for when you talk more to your child, then you give them the one, you model for them. How do I talk about this? How do I do those things? They need to see that, right? um, and then you also give them a space to practice, because that's an and practice sometimes, whew, as a parent, I know I give you guys all the strategies, but it's exhausting. It is, because like you said, they want to keep going and going and going. But you just gotta enjoy that moment, because one day they're gonna be adults and they're not gonna talk to you no more. They're gonna just ask for stuff.
Right, right, girl.
So
Not even
yeah,
adult. Like they could just, that starts
yeah,
early.
I know. But it's just like, just I try to really show them, like, when you're walking to school, you could just even talk about me and my daughter, we talk about everything. Like, wow, look at the cheese. They're finally starting to change. Like, they're white and those ones over there are pink. And oh, wow, they're blooming. And she's like, what's blooming? Oh, blooming is when the flowers open. Now she wants to look close at the flowers. And, I didn't sit down with a book and read a story and, and force her to do a worksheet about coloring and learning about spring, but it's just about experiencing the world. So now when she's in that space, all of these memories, all of these things are coming to her mind, and she's has experience with these words. They're not just a word that she memorized or she knows. She remembers looking at that flower, and 3 days ago it was closed and now it's open, and she understands that. So that's a lot of what I hope to accomplish for families.
Indeed, and I appreciate you for it because like that's a big thing. Language development in itself is a big thing. But knowing that as a parent, hey, you can work with your child if you feel there's an issue. Early intervention is a thing. So definitely if you see something or feel something early on, listen to yourself, reach out and get the
Yeah.
support needed. Because there is support, of course,
Yes.
everywhere. So where do we find immerse therapies?
So you can find me on my website, immersetherapies.com. I'm gonna be at the Homeschool Your Child convention, Homeschool Your Kids. So I am so excited. I'm trying to just really bring something different. So I'm really excited to meet the families there. I'm gonna be sharing a lot of just little tips that I would love to see, and it's so hard for me because I feel like I have so much to share. But I want to make it digestible for everyone. And I want you guys to know that I'm always here. So you can definitely reach out to me also on Instagram at Immersed in Speech. So yeah, make sure you follow me.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. Two things before I let you go. One, with all that you're doing, you got a little baby girl that's in kindergarten, then you're helping all these families, helping the schools out. How do you self-care? How do you make sure that you
Um,
are presenting your best for everyone?
Well, one thing I do is definitely take time for me and my family. Like, honestly, like, as you can see, I really love just being able to spend time with my daughter. And because I'm always doing so much, sometimes it could be challenging to like carve out that time. So I'm very intentional about carving out that time where it could just be me and her. I love just being able to have like mommy and daughter time. Like, I'm always telling her, like, no, but you're supposed to do this with your mom. And she's just
Right?
like, no, I was like, no, let's go. We're doing this. So yeah, that's really a big piece of my self-care, is just being able to pour and feel that love.
Okay, receiving love. Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Okay, and if parents didn't hear anything else in this conversation, three things you want to make sure they leave this conversation with.
Hmm. Oh, that's a great question. One thing that I feel like I definitely said it, but I would love to emphasize the importance of just finding ways to make your everyday environments and your everyday routines into language opportunities is going to be so helpful for any child, regardless of a diagnosis or regardless of how old they are. Um, that's the first thing that I want to emphasize. Two, I want to emphasize just the importance of just reading to your child. You really open up so many doors. And honestly, read anything, whatever they're interested in, because that's who you are. At home, you get to do what they don't get to do at school. At school, they have to read certain stories, they have to go through the day a certain way. At home, you are flexible and be able to, I would say, I would really encourage parents and empower parents to feel that they know what's best. You don't have to feel like, oh, well, I don't really know how to do this, or I'm not an expert in this, or I'm not a teacher. I've never, I'm a mechanic. I don't know anything about. So sit down and talk to your child about mechanics, because I learned mechanics has a lot to do with everything. You learn about stability, you learn about, so much things, electricity, whatever, your child will be interested in the fact that you're interested. So
Right.
yeah, those are the three things I would definitely want to leave everyone with.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I look forward to meeting
Mhm.
you in Jersey. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you for all that you're doing to ensure families are supported. Families, know that you are supported, and this is not a
Yeah.
journey you have to take alone at any time. So definitely reach out and tap into the resources that are available to you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Homeschool
and
your
thank you so
kids.
much for
Of
putting this on, because
course.
honestly, it's like it's so hard to find communities, and to feel like you're making the right decision. Sometimes we're always like on and off, and
I
because we want
know.
to do what's best. So just you being able to provide this space and bring experts into this space that can help validate a lot of what families is feeling is amazing. So yeah, I wanted to say thank you too.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, no, it's important because, stepping outside of the norm is a big thing. Just something that's different than what we've seen in the generations before us or even what we experience ourselves. But parents understanding that they are homeschooling no matter the school setting is really big for me. Like, understand that you are still your child's first and most qualified teacher. So always stand in that position and make sure you all never take that hat off. I don't give that away to anyone, no matter if they're in public, charter, private, micro, whatever the case may be. Know that you are the go-to. So hold that title, hold that position. Definitely, definitely. But homeschool your kids.
Definitely.